Trying to get it into two pieces.
Yeah, you.
Okay, we are back into open session. We had a rather long discussion, and we have requested the administrator to gather more data for us for any decision-making that we may do on it. Okay, utility district number one. Jim, please, your report.
Sure. On our checking account, beginning balance on November 1st of $35,829.97. At deposits of $28,219.29. And net disbursements of $37,788.21. And at their interest of $15 gives a balance as of November 30th of $26,276.05. Our savings account is beginning balance is $175,027.53. I had to make a withdrawal, a transfer of $25,000. Add interest of 81.93. The ending balance is $150,109.46. Our savings restricted account, beginning balance of November 1st is $44,192.35. Interest on that is $12.71. The ending balance is $44,205.06. CD number 4, which is number 134, is $443,923.69. And our CD number 135 is $181,130.63, with a grand total of $545,644.89.
Any questions anybody has? I'll make a motion then to approve the utility district number one.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jim. Okay, next on the agenda is public input. Your opportunity to address the board on any subject and also on any agendized subject. Any general comments anybody wishes to make? Yes, sir.
Good evening, folks. I'm Mark Nelson with the Door Kiwanee Legislative Day Steering Committee, and I want to thank you. I guess you guys put some funds towards being a supporter this year. The reason I'm here today, though, is there's three important things I want to share with you that I think you need to know between now and the time when we go down to Madison. The first is with the new governor, you're going to have all new secretaries, deputy secretaries, and assistant secretaries, the top three in all the different branches of the government. And going down there and meeting these folks, getting good established relations with these folks is, I think, a really important thing for the towns and villages to consider, as they move forward. One other thing, there's going to be a big pushback, we're afraid, of having changing the law about school starting only after Labor Day. That was one of our main topics this last 2 years ago. There's been constant pushback from a couple areas down in the southern part of Wisconsin, but particularly with Tony now as the governor, an education guy, we're concerned that might be some pressure of coming up with a hybrid form is what we've heard. And so I think obviously all the business people here in northern Wisconsin, Door County, having that would be disastrous for trying to keep your employees as long as you can. So that's a really important thing I wanted to share with you. And also, I know you guys are really struggling with this premier room tax situation. And I will say that when we started this back in 2003, we had our CARPS topology as a major issue. We had it every 2 years thereafter. And finally, the legislature made some moves there and realized that one size doesn't fit all. You can't have the same laws for percolation of groundwater in effect throughout the state. You have a problem with your 54234 area code. Normally when we have people ask, or when we ask to open up for legislative issues, we ask for some solutions. This is a very difficult problem that you have. And one of the three criteria we have for picking issues is, one, has to be nonpartisan, two, it has to be Door County, Kewaunee County specific, and three, it's something that we can't solve on our own with our own resources. So I would highly suggest as putting forth in trying to get an issue for you to resolve this, is say what this problem is, and in this case, really ask for some help, sort of like the CARPS topology one, because you don't know what the exact answer was going to be, of coming up with, having them come up with a solution. I mean, a couple of things off the top of my head, Liberty Grove has polling places. People are on voting records in the state. Is there any way you can identify a driver's license where your polling district is to avoid having to pay that tax when you're, purchasing goods throughout the area? So anyway, I don't know, but obviously you have people up here who aren't Wisconsin residents, who don't vote here, that are still having that same problem. But what I would say is try to throw that out there to, get some, help from a state level on getting that resolved for you. And
I called this past summer the Madison representatives for our area to discuss the inequity of the way the room tax dollars were collected and distributed, for that very reason, because so many Liberty Grove residents have Sister Bay addresses, and of course Sister Bay has the Premier Resort tax, and the Liberty Grove residents are taxed and the money goes to Sister Bay. And I was informed, first of all, the legislators I talked to commented, well, that's just a case of legislative laziness as far as administering the Premier Resort tax, and offered only as a solution that they would take it up as soon as session was open again, but also that there is currently a state law on the books that, of course, nobody knows about, that says if you can prove that you are a Liberty Grove taxpayer, even though you have a Sister Bay zip code, you don't have to collect it or pass it through or pay the tax if you buy something online or out of the county. The problem with that is most people are not aware of the statute, and if they are, a lot of people look at well, it's only 0.5%, and they pay it. But the bottom line is there is a significant amount of dollars that should not be being paid by Liberty Grove residents and should most definitely not be going to Sister Bay.
well, again, like I said, I know you guys have that issue there, so I just wanted to come up here
Yep.
and share with you. Because the thing about it is that if we get this on a legislative day issue, what happens is by having we meet with all the legislators, and it really greases the wheels for our local representatives to get laws through. And the thing is, whether it's Department of Revenue or Department of, I'm not sure who else, it had to be the most department, well, whoever does the sales tax and stuff. If the legislature tells those departments to do it, they have to do it, and again, I don't know, how, again, if there's that law there and people can, show that, and if they need an educational part of it to allow more people to be aware of that, educational campaign to businesses and stuff, to send out their, they have their state tax code there, have it added to the bottom of that. I don't know.
Right
But-
now, there is a real recalcitrance, if you will, to do anything about it. And I think about Sturgeon Bay the city of Sturgeon Bay applying for Premier Resort tax, and they have to get specific approval because their revenue doesn't meet the criteria of being mostly tourism-related, so the legislature is going to make a decision on that. But they've got the exact same issue. There are many outlying rural areas that have a Sturgeon Bay zip code. Same thing. They would be paying.
Yeah, I'm in
and collecting.
Sebastopol with the
Yep,
Sturgeon Bay
exactly.
zip code.
So, and this has been going on a long time. Wisconsin Dells was the first one to have Premier Resort tax, and that's been 8-10 years at least.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they have outlying rural areas. It's just something that people aren't aware of. And the zip codes that have, all these extra, that's a lot of extra money coming in, and it shouldn't be being paid by these people who didn't even have an opportunity to vote on Premier Resort tax. So it's something that really needs to be fixed, but you're dealing with the Department of Revenue that oversees it. and the U.S. Postal Service. Good luck.
Well, it's not me. I'm the messenger here, so.
Okay.
But I will say, there's one of the flip thing I just thought of. I mean, the other thing you could do is join them. Say, okay, if you're gonna collect it, then pass it on to us, because it's not your money.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else, general comments? Kathy?
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay. My name's Kathy Olson, as the board all is familiar with me. And I'm here tonight regarding the property at 11976 Highway 42. Once again, I did not receive any sort of notice of this meeting. To the best of my knowledge, the Olson family still owns that property, and I'm insulted by the disrespect. I don't understand why I didn't receive notice, not even a phone call. Have notes here, and I'm going to go through it, and I'd appreciate no interruptions. And if anybody's insulted, I'm sorry, but I'm appalled. Absolutely appalled. This is, like I said, this is the second or third time notice was not given to the Olson family, none of us. I don't know what went on behind your closed session. I can speculate, but that's not credible evidence. When my parents passed away, the property was not for sale. Bart and I worked on it, getting it in compliance with the town ordinances, got it in compliance with the sanitarian. All of a sudden, the family has become a target. 4 months after my parents passed away, I received a letter from the town board of Liberty Grove about the stuff on the property, and it was full. I admit that. But Bart and I did a tremendous job cleaning it up, getting it into marketable condition. We didn't need, and we were not going to be given the opportunity to go through my parents' personal possessions in the house because of all this hoopla. The town, I heard rumors, was interested in the property, wanting to make it a park. I've heard the town wants to make it into a parking lot for more boat trailers. Since Dad was dock master, that launching ramp hasn't been filled with boats. There's no need for a boat ramp. Okay? That's my opinion. But like I was saying, all of a sudden the Olson family's become a target. The town wants the property, I hear, but doesn't submit an offer. The last time I appeared, I said submit an offer. Nobody did. Bottom line, Bart and I did not intend to sell the property. We intended to fix it up, make it either for additional businesses, whether it be gift shops, whatever, employee housing. Our intent was to work on that stuff this winter. Everything in past town board meetings that I said I was going to do, I did. Bart and I accomplished those things. Now we're being forced to sell it because the board listened to John Lee. John Lee's, wrote the judge. I'd like to know if John Lee's being compensated for any of this. I know he's in cahoots with one of the business owners in Ellison Bay. I feel like you're trying to steal the property from us. The probate services now is robbing us of the property. It's ridiculous. When did the town board or the town of Liberty Grove get so involved in a personal matter? Who's the latest death? Is the town going after that property? You know, like I said, we had no intentions of selling it. We wanted to make it a contributing factor to Ellison Bay. There aren't hardly any businesses in Ellison Bay. It's a dead town. What good would a park be or a boat parking lot? Nothing. That's no income for anybody. What I find really strange is Bart and I received compliments for what we were doing. And because of John Lee, the town board, everything my parents worked their entire lives for us kids, they built that so us kids would have a residual income, has all gone to pot. You know, it's just frustrating, it's disgusting, the lack of respect. If the town was interested in it so badly, why didn't you come talk to me? John Lee says, well, you're not approachable. Since when? You guys have all known me, most of you, except this bear person here, have known me since I was a little kid. You know I'm easy to talk to, I'm reasonable. I may come off, you know, short, abrupt, but that's me. I'm also an easygoing person and reasonable. And this whole mess is totally unreasonable. I'd like to know why Bob Kidbull at one of the town meetings says, this is enough, it's gone on long enough. What was he hinting on? Is he a friend or foe of mine? I don't know. You know, it just bottom line, I don't understand why the town is so involved. When we got it into compliance, we got rid of the boats that were there, which wasn't even against ordinance. You know, I'm totally frustrated with all of this. And now we're gonna lose everything our parents worked their entire lives for. They died at 82 and 83 years old. Dad had the property in the 60s, is when they built it. The roof needed repair. You know, I mean, things that Bart and I planned on working on this winter. So that's all I have to say. This whole thing has made it miserable for Bart and his family to live here. They can't go to work, they can't go to the grocery store with somebody confronting them. What's going on? What are you doing? Now what's gonna happen? What's going on? They don't get any peace of mind. So that's my frustration for tonight. I'd love to know what was going on. You know, I think I deserve that respect.
Thank
And
you.
now I'll take comments if you want.
What was the decision of the probate judge?
The probate judge, because of John Lee,
No,
Right.
what was the decision?
the decision was to remove me as personal rep because of John Lee's whining
No.
and letters.
Did he state that?
Because it was taking too long,
What was taking too long?
closing of the estate.
Okay.
And nobody seems to understand we could only work on it on the weekends, weather permitting, when it was warm, because of no electricity, no heat. You know, we had goals. I mean, if you've got an investor for me, we can stop something and work together as a team and come up with a plan to make it a profitable business for Ellison Bay and John Lee, Bart, and I. And I'm welcome to those suggestions. I've got ideas. I don't have the money. So,
Anybody else wish to?
all of you have
Make
my
a comment,
contact
question?
information, or Jan does.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? General comments?
My name is Jill Carco. I just wanted to add to what she said, and that is that at this point, they are barred from going on to the property, according to the probate rep at this time. It's on the market. The place has personal property there that they are unable to do anything with. It's rather fraudulent, I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else? General comments? Anybody wish to speak on an agendized item? Ann?
The grease trap thing? The grease trap
The
letter?
grease trap, okay.
Yeah.
That's number 15. Anybody else, please? Dale? 15.
And possibly 23.
The other one?
15, 18, and 23.
What do you say? 15, 18?
18, 23. Okay, anybody else? All right, going on then to number 14, consider committee appointments to the Highway, Parks and Property, and Tech Committees. I'm going to make a motion that we appoint Paul Schwengel to the Tech Committee and Kathy Ward to the Highway, Parks and Property, and Tech Committee. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion, anybody? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Update on letters for grease trap installations. You want to make your comments first, please?
Ann Miller, 2604 Grove Road, Bailey's Harbor, Door County Kraut. And based on the letter, I called the plumber and had him come out. But in the meantime, I had a whole bunch of questions because we were the first one that Dave Alberts came to inspect when you guys originally sent out the letter. I called right away and said, blah, blah, blah. Capsules were the next ones in line. And on the actual ordinance, did your utility people develop that ordinance, or was that just something Sister Bay handed to you?
Sister Bay did.
Okay, because I'm trying to get answers to questions, all right. And why did Sister Bay Utilities overlook, the Northport Dock has they had a restaurant in that facility where the ferry greeting place is, so I don't know if anybody looked at that, but the Shoreline wasn't on there, the Viking wasn't on there, the Last Stop Deli, JJ's in La Puerta. If Island Cider is pressing their own fruit and bottling it, they're a food processing plant, and they have to be on that list. And then, well, the town hall and the women's club, when you're renting out the hall and doing stuff like that, if people are cooking there, and then Door County Bakery wasn't there, but I know that when I was on the board, Door County Bakery came before us, and they had to put a holding tank in because they had so much floatable oil, because that's what they bake their bread in. I didn't know if that's why they weren't on the list, or if this was all just oversight. And then when I looked at the ratio of what we had for Liberty Grove to what Sister Bay had, Sister Bay has 25 restaurants. When you go through all of the stuff that you can find, and it's like, well, if they've got 25 places on there that are restaurants and delis, or like the grocery store, where's all the loading coming from? And it makes it seem like we're the bad guys. I looked at some other things, and there were questions in my mind as to the, like bees. They said that was okay because they only had 2 sinks, but in the world of food service sanitation, anytime you're serving food or making food for the public, your washware has to be washed, rinsed, and run through a sanitizer solution. And I don't care if you're doing it in cow troughs, you have to have 3 bins. So this idea that someone with only 1 or 2 sinks is exempt is not right if you actually take the time to go and work with DATCAP and the FDA to see what the actual requirements are, and then go from there. The FDA and DATCAP also, they deal with grease and meat and production of grease, and there are different licensing levels and classifications. So a food processing plant license may cover, there's about 50 different things that can be covered, and I don't have a copy of that because it only comes on the renewal sheet every year, and you check the ones that you do or don't do, and then your end cost is determined by what classifications you are. I myself have to have a dairy plant license because I refuse to use mayonnaise instead of a dairy product in some of my things, and the only classification they have for that is 1 million or less pounds. I said, don't you have just like a teeny weeny license that I can get? No, it's one size fits all, so it's okay. So I got that. And I've got my retail food license. But nobody said, they said the commercial fish businesses weren't required, but if they're cleaning fish on the property, even if they're throwing all the guts away, they have to clean their counters up and stuff and have it be sanitary. And if they are running their entrails through a grinder, you know, or like a disposal kind of thing, well, that's even more grease that's going into wherever, you know, if it's holding tank or whatever. So I couldn't understand why that was left out. I tried to find the utility code ordinance online, but Sister Bay's site won't let you get into anything. And all the minutes and all the agendas kind of disappeared from everything because I was trying to go back and see where all this was coming from, but I couldn't get any information. Evidently Mike Skell and Dave Alberts aren't here, so they can't let me know if Dave Alberts was a licensed plumber or not, but I found out from one of the local master plumbers that no, and I don't know if Mike Skell is, and if a master plumber is the only person that can basically make this determination, and if they did charge you guys for doing these inspections, why didn't they send out a qualified person? You know, it's just really confusing. And then in my list of going through trying to gain more information, I found out that plumbers can be licensed either to work from the outside of the building to the septic tank and field or whatever your system is, or on the inside, or both. So the people that do your septic pumping aren't qualified to actually make a determination unless someone would approve that as to whether or not you have grease going into your septic system. And our septic is part of our home system. Let's see. And then when Dave Alberts came out to do the inspection, we asked him right away, you want to look in the septic tank? There's no grease in there, but, you know, we can open it up for you if you want. He didn't want anything to do with it. And it's like, how weird is that? So he just kind of looked around, and when they said they didn't have any records, well, he took all kinds of pictures, and I gave him documentation from things that I had gotten from Mike Till, and I don't know where it went. They said there was nothing, so I put an open records request into them recently to see if I could get their notes or whatever, and, well, you got 30 days, so I haven't heard anything back yet. I wondered, when septic tank wastewater is brought to Sister Bay Liberty Grove plant, are those truckloads of wastewater put into a separate tank versus being dumped into a single tank that's combined with the village stuff? Because Bailey's Harbor does track all their stuff. When anything comes in, they've got records of who it comes from and how many gallons and all this kind of stuff. They keep that on their files. That might be something we need to do. The ordinance 817 says, except that such interceptors shall not be required for private living quarters to dwelling units. I didn't quite understand that because our dwelling is also part of that. But the plumber said, well, it could just be that that's a side and you'd have to test it ahead of time before the wastewater from the kitchen got to the the septic tank itself. And the sink, the 3-bin sink is a qualifier, and the 2-bin sink, that doesn't work. If you ask DACAP or the FDA, they'll explain that. And there's no uniform inspection form. When Dave Alberts came out, you know, like the FDA and DACAP, they have this form that they use. It's a standardized form, so everybody's treated equally, and they go through everything, and whatever criteria you have to abide by, that section is something that they fill out, and then they give you a written determination, and they email it to you at the end of the inspection. So that might be something that Sister Bay or whomever needs to do so that everybody's treated evenly across the board. And then when you get to DATCAP and the FDA, just because you see big sinks doesn't mean that there's big production. Sinks are sized by the size of the equipment you use. So if you use larger pans and stuff, you're required to have bigger sinks rather than somebody that just has a little bitty bar sink or something kind of set up like that. So that's something that didn't seem to be taken into account. And no food processing plant license is required by DATCAP or the FDA unless a company desires to sell products wholesale versus all directly to the consumer as a retail sale. The wholesaling aspect may trigger DATCAP and FDA additional kitchen requirements, licensing, and inspection, and actually to even cut up, say you got somebody that's under the cookie bill. They can't even cut up the products that they make and give it to that customer because you can only cut samples up or cut the products you make into smaller portion sizes in a licensed commercial kitchen. So, and then, does anybody know what the parts per million concentration is for the grease? No?
You have to ask that of the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay. And then, do you guys do the independent lab how do we do that? If we want to contest this, say we get done with this and you guys decide that what it is what it is, who contacts the independent lab or who takes a sample of the wastewater to see if we are or aren't required to put in a grease interceptor?
I have no idea at this stage of the game.
Okay.
You're
Let's see.
probably better off having a licensed plumber do it.
Yeah, but the lab thingy, I called Sturgeon Bay, and they can't do it there. And so they gave me the name of a place in Green Bay that does it, and there was one of our engineer customers said there is a place in Sheboygan that does the testing, but they don't come out and do the sampling. So you'd have to have, I suppose, the plumber do it. And if we did contest it and we have this lab analysis done, then who is the entity that signs off clearing us from having to put in a grease interceptor?
The Sister Bay Utilities.
Sister Bay? Okay. And we use parchment paper. And Dave Alberts, he kind of didn't understand that. I said, well, that's so we don't have to wash pans a lot. You know, you put the parchment paper down, you use it, the grease goes on that, and you throw it in the trash, and wahoo, you don't have to do dishes constantly. The other thing was the volume of production that can be conducted by business is not required to have a restaurant, food processing, or similar facilities inspection or licensing by Sister Bay Utilities in the town of Liberty Grove. Are the cookie bill people, you've got confectioners out there that they didn't catch. So the cookie bill people, when I license myself, my licensing fee is determined by the gross sales that I make. It doesn't matter if I got firewood in those gross sales or what, but the state takes that gross figure and then they determine how much I have to pay for my license. Under the cookie bill, there's no revenue limit. And they can just bake away to their heart's content. Now, they can't do high moisture They can only do low moisture baking. So that you can, if you need to know specifically what your moisture content is without going through the general guidelines, yeah, you can send a sample into a lab. But, you know, as soon as you start using stuff like cream cheese or anything like that, or even higher moisture muffins, cakes, things, then that's considered something that needs a food processing license. And the pickle bill people, they can only can acidified, high acidified products up to $7,500 per year. So then you got those people out there that can do that thing, and sometimes things that you use olive oil on the top of. So those are some of my questions, and Paul Corden was nice enough to come to my rescue when I said, help, because I had called some other people and they didn't call back. So he came out and he took all my questions and he took the letter that we got from you guys, and he worked with somebody from a poop plant, and they came up with kind of a common sense approach for some of us. I mean, restaurants, yeah, restaurants deal with meat. And when you have a food processing license and you're doing bakery, you can't use any more than 2 ounces of meat per serving, or you have to throw yourself into the restaurant category. So we avoid that at all costs. But they came up with a kind of a common sense approach, and I typed it out. And he said that an inspection agreement, if the town wanted to draw up an inspection agreement that required a master plumber to come out and inspect the actual septic tank once or twice a year, and then sign off on it, or maybe get an additional person to sign off on it, they'd be able to see if grease was coming, because the grease hangs onto the pipe that comes out of the house or kitchen, whatever. And that the town of Liberty Grove would maintain the right to inspect at any time for grease production, and that at the time the county of Door mandated septic evaluation, you know, like they come and pump us out every 3 years, that the company pumping the septic tank or a master plumber has to verify grease or lack thereof in the food production facility. And that point, they would either not sign off because you had grease and that would throw you into getting a grease trap, or you would be signed off as being okay. And so those were some kind of common sense things he had. I don't know if you guys are talking to Sister Bay or not yet. Are you guys?
We do.
Oh, you do? So I can give you this stuff, and I've got some more information on the Cookie Bill folks and what they have to do. And if you want a copy of all of my silly questions, well, I can give them to you. But
No, I think we should have that.
that's my 2 cents worth.
Well, thank you.
Here, I'll give you this.
What's your company?
Door County Kraut Company.
Well, I'm sorry, what?
Door County Sauerkraut. And we do baking. You know, I licensed myself to be able to do some baking, but I don't make a lot of cheesecakes or anything like that. And when I figured out how many days total in a year that we maybe are working, it's about 37 days a year. It's a hobby for us, because I've got 2 other regular jobs. So we're not in there. In the summertime, we're in there 1 day a week. I mean, I may be in there a few hours here and a few hours there, or making cookie dough or something like that. But basically, we're baking, and we can get most all our baking done in about 4 hours. And yeah, I got one of those big commercial convection ovens. It's electric.
Where is your location?
At my house. We have our own commercial kitchen. You can come out and see it if you want. I don't care. Just call.
Oh, where are you located?
Down on Grove Road, down by the AC tap on the town line. West Grove Road.
Okay.
And you would look for the Auto Care Center and Gustav's 1887 Lodge, those Todd signs that are on the highway, that's us. So you could find us that way, and, you know, if anybody wants to come out and see what we're doing, I don't have a problem with it. But I'll just give you this stuff.
Well, I take it, John.
Oh, you want it? Okay.
Well,
no.
Bring it here.
No, Janet's grabbing it, Bud's grabbing it.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Dale? I can't imagine there's anything you can bring up.
I'll be brief. Dale Stewart, 12677 Sawmill Lane, Ellison Bay. So Camp Zion is on the list, and we are under contract with a licensed plumber to rectify this reluctantly because we don't have a fryer. I have two concerns. Annie kind of took the long way. I'll try to summarize it. The lack of measurable standards is disappointing. But for us, that building is a state-approved building. It was, the permits were granted by the state of Wisconsin, and they did not require a grease trap. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, Janet. Janet and I met with Mr. Alpers and Mr. Skell. What morning was that, Wednesday? Monday morning?
Monday,
Do you want to
Monday at
summarize?
8 o'clock.
Do you want to summarize?
It- The problem is not with the state-approved plans for their kitchens. The problem is in the facility in Sister Bay and how the grease and waste goes through their equipment. Bailey's Harbor is different. They have, and I want to say it's called a digester, where if you come in there with heavy grease to get rid of, they put it in a whole separate tank and they deal with it differently. Sister Bay doesn't have that. Sister Bay also requires every grease-producing business, I don't know how else to, quantify it, but every grease-producing business has to have a grease trap. Doesn't matter the size, doesn't matter, if you're seasonal, because all the waste goes directly into the treatment plant. The ordinance was designed to not have anything to do with state-approved plans. What it has to do with is controlling the waste that goes to the plant and keeping the equipment at the plant from breaking down. That's what the ordinance is for, so. They have been calling me. There are people that are responding to these letters. There are some that they've also called me and they now say, no, they don't need to have a grease trap, so take them off the list. A lot of the businesses that Annie talked about, they are on the list. They are in the inspection group, so they are being looked at. And I don't know what else you want to know. The letters state they've got till the 15th to do something. There are, 6 businesses that never responded to them at all, never called, never anything. Those people have until January 1st to make a contact to Sister Bay. 3 or 4 of them have. They're still waiting for a couple of them. So that's where we're at right now.
We do have copies of Dave Alper's inspection report.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and whether Door County Crowd is one of them, I don't know. What they gave me certainly is not everybody that they went to. So I can look at that tomorrow and see if Door County Crowd is one of them. We did have a conversation with them about businesses that claimed that when they were inspected by Sister Bay said to them, you don't need a grease trap. I asked them specifically, because there was more than one business, and I told them that there are several businesses where there were at least 2 people present at the time that the inspector made that statement. They are kind of denying that they made that statement. So, and I haven't actually had a chance to read through all the notes that were taken. Whether these businesses are included in the copies of notes that we got, I don't know. So, I would have to look at that.
So did they give you the information at the time of this meeting? Or had they been giving you the information as, in terms of the Liberty Grove businesses, as it's come into them? Or it just gets collected and we haven't known
What
who's
they,
doing what?
what they do is they do their inspection and then they turn that information over to Stacy Bell, who creates the invoice that comes to the town. And in that invoice, it's very generic. There's nothing itemized, no findings, anything like that. And all of the and it doesn't even, I don't even think it tells us businesses, does it? On her report?
I don't think
it-
so.
Not what we got, no.
Yeah.
No.
So we just got this information from them in October, late October. Otherwise, you know, we could have been dealing with it all along.
Right,
but
right.
Our ordinance has timelines, so the decision of the board was to stick with the ordinance.
Any other questions anybody has?
And again, a lot of these people where it says you need to have a grease trap, you've given them till the 15th of January to make contact with a plumber, have a plumber contact us, let us know what's going on. Which we're not at the 15th yet, so.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions anybody has? We still are talking to them, but maybe not as much as we should. Sure.
So are we supposed to call you guys, or do we call Sister Bay Utilities? Okay, because in getting letters from you guys, I figured you guys were the ones that we were supposed to be dealing with, not them. So just call them directly?
Did you get a letter from us that you
I
need a
got a
grease
letter
trap
from-
and that you have until January 15th?
Yeah, and I thought we were supposed to contact.
Follow
The
the letter.
directions in the letter.
Okay, all right,
Follow the directions in the letter.
okay, I'll call Sister Bay, because I think Paul took the letter.
Okay. All right, then going on, to consider committee appointment and alternates to the Utility District Number 1. Looking for a volunteer.
I'm an alternate, right?
Did we do this
No,
last week?
this is for,
Last
this
one,
is for the
with the Sister
wastewater
Bay.
treatment.
Oh.
This is our own utility district.
Oh, jeez.
We have, well, Tom Gaz and Bob are on there right now. And Hugh kind of removed himself from it,
Yeah.
so we really need
Hugh
somebody.
has indicated that he doesn't want to be on it anymore.
Right.
Is it a monthly meeting?
Mm-hmm.
4:30 usually on a Wednesday, and it's pretty short.
Takes about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I would be an alternate to that if you want to. I'd be happy, I'd be fine with that, as an alternate.
How's your arm?
Well, I think, we've been under staffed, and I'm one of the people because of
Yeah,
the accident that I had.
yeah.
And I think, so I haven't been to a meeting for a while there, so I gotta get up to speed on what's going on. If I can find out.
Well, let's do this. Let's appoint Lou as an alternate. Let's appoint Bud as an alternate and appoint myself as an alternate. And I will be bringing something back to you in our November meeting, or January meeting.
Okay.
So I'll make that motion to appoint Lou, Bud, and myself as the alternates for our utility district number 1.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. All right, consider adoption of the revised smart growth plan. Anybody have a question on that? Then well, Nancy, you should probably make that motion. So you
Okay,
guys worked so
happily
hard
so.
on it.
I'll make a motion to adopt the revised smart growth plan or the comprehensive planning for the town of Liberty Grove.
Second that.
Lou seconds. Any further discussion?
I didn't review this beforehand, but I think you should do this as an ordinance,
Oh,
because it's kind of,
yeah.
when it's referred to on the other end, in order to have teeth, you need the ordinance to
Enforce it.
Okay.
enforce it and have force of law, if you will.
But isn't your original ordinance your teeth? This is
Yes.
okay, so you have an original ordinance and now you're just revising it. You're not,
Right. So you need an ordinance, it should be done in ordinance form to amend it or revise it in order for it to be correct.
So I'll withdraw my motion.
I'll withdraw the second.
Okay.
all right, we'll
All right, that
come
goes
back
to
with an
the,
ordinance.
that goes to the January meeting.
All right.
Okay, then number 18, consider recommendations from the Plan Commission and buildings exceeding 5,000 square feet, text overlay.
Yes. This came up before our Plan Commission because of an incident that happened over the last month. A property owner in Liberty Grove purchased a property that has an existing barn that is over 5,000 square feet, but it's existing. But they want to renovate the barn for living space and add on to it, which would exceed the 5,000 square feet. Now, technically, that should trigger a conditional use for a building in excess of 5,000 square feet because they are adding on to it. When the property owner went down to the county, Rick Brower and Mariah Good made an executive decision to give them an over-the-county permit for that. I spoke with Rick about it and expressed some disappointment that we didn't get a heads up on that at the very least, because it is our overlay. However, pragmatism during the conversation led me to bring it back to the Plan Commission. Since that ordinance was put in place, we have approved every single request for 5,000 square feet, greater than 5,000 square foot footprint. It is an extra step for the property owners, a relatively burdensome one and expensive. We are the only municipality in Door County that has that overlay. Everyone else capitulates to the county ordinance with not a limit on it. And because of that, it is sometimes forgotten about at the county level when someone goes in and talks to Rick, which causes some abrasion and hard feelings at time when a property owner thinks they have dotted all their i's and crossed all their t's, and oh, by the way, you have to spend another $450 and go for this CUP. It is very unpopular with the county board and not terribly popular, obviously, with the planning department. And the size of buildings in Liberty Grove, as elsewhere in Door County, are still controlled by setbacks, height, and lot coverage. In order to build a monstrous house like the big house, you have to have a pretty big piece of property and still meet all the setbacks. So, at our last Plan Commission meeting, I explained all this to the Plan Commissioners, and despite combined feelings that it would have been nice had the planning department informed us that they were going to overstep our text amendment. We voted unanimously to recommend that we should probably do away with that particular text amendment.
Okay, you make that into a motion?
I will make a motion that the town of Liberty Grove, however, they do let the county know that we would like to no longer have the text amendment limiting footprint to 5,000 square feet.
I second that.
Second. Dale, you wanted to make a comment? Okay. Any questions anybody has? We have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Consider adjustments to ordinance 4-07 fireworks policy. This has been put off a number of times. Go ahead.
I don't, I'm not sure what the changes are. It's not redlined or anything. But to me, this goes to anything that we enact, including, for example, the ordinance we just talked about, the overlay. What I think is important to add is the purpose. In other words, I know what it says in terms of how it's supposed to restrict, but what is the intent? Is it to keep people from not, shooting their eye out with a firework? Is it to keep noise at a minimum? I think something along those lines gives the ordinance a lot more understanding. In 30 years from now, or, if somebody didn't know about the 500 square foot overlay, they knew about that, but they didn't know about the big house, then you'd say, well, what's the point? The big house wouldn't be specifically mentioned in an ordinance. To me, I think I'd be more comfortable if there was just a preamble or something that expresses the intent as to why we're doing this ordinance to begin with. We had that time that another ordinance that had to do with buildings prior to 1954, and we tried to figure out what were they trying to do with that. And I think it's incumbent on us, who might know what this is about, to give it a better idea to somebody who might not know, somebody down the road 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. That's the only thing I think I see lacking in this, though.
Okay, I asked this to be put on there because and I have personally experienced it, where at all hours of the night, well beyond the 11 o'clock, fireworks are going off. And it has affected, obviously, neighbors, and it affects animals as well. I think a lot of people have, dogs particularly, that get very emotional, if you will, when they hear this sort of thing.
Right. And I don't disagree with that, John. I think that's a commendable reason, but I think it should be, if that were part of the intent that's expressed in the ordinance, to say to promote the, I don't know how to phrase it right now, but to promote the
Health, safety, and welfare.
health, safety, and welfare, especially with fireworks being detonated after after the time that the regulation stands for the peace and tranquility of the neighborhood and the community. Something along those lines, I think, would help just sort of drive home the point a little bit, and then make future boards able to enforce it that much better as well.
Okay, I was going to suggest that now they can apply for this permit online. It strikes me that maybe it would be better if they come in and apply for it in person. And also that some way the neighbors should know that this is going to happen.
The neighbors. Oh,
That
be
somebody-
notified that somebody has
Yeah.
taken out a
Yeah.
fireworks permit.
Whose responsibility is that?
Well, the permit right now has no fee charged, am I correct?
Correct.
So you could, I suppose you could put a fee on it, and then the town would take that responsibility to notify.
So what we're doing right now is we're looking at the ordinance that's in place and see if we
It's in
want
place, yeah,
changes.
yeah.
Okay. So neighbors would be immediately adjacent to the property or across the road? Or we would have to
You'd
define
have
what
to,
a neighbor is?
yeah, you'd have to define that. And I know a number of people have, called the sheriff's department complaining. The sheriff's department, for the most part, doesn't really, respond to that anymore. They can't. They're so stretched already on.
Well, one question that I had in reading through it, something that was unclear, it is, so in the case of a household, which would be the residents or non-resident individuals consisting of 2 or more people, so if you apply for your permit at least 10 days prior, I don't know if you're having an event, but say you have people coming up at 4th of July time and they're going to shoot off fireworks. Would the permit be specific as to what days or range of days that it's good for? And is that's not the case now?
No, it
Permits
is-
must be issued at least
It's
10
the
days
case.
prior.
It's on there.
It's on there.
It is the case, there isn't always the 10-day prior. A lot of times people will just show up 2 or 3 days beforehand and apply for the permit.
So in the case of 4th of July, they would only be able to do fireworks on the 4th of July or on the 5th too? Or what if the day they plan,
Well, they
they're
have to have
rained out?
they have to have a range of days on the permit.
That they're, okay, that
But
they could possibly be,
if they want to shoot them off on the 4th, they're not always here on the 20th
right,
to apply for the permit or whatever 10 days before. They might show up in this room on the 1st and say, hey, we've decided we're going to we want to shoot off fireworks.
I'd be happy to put a preamble and then a notification provision in and then
Okay.
run it by the board.
Bring it back?
Yeah.
All right.
You could put it in the form of a ordinance,
Yeah,
amending the ordinance.
Yeah,
yeah, it'll be amending the ordinance.
Okay.
all right. Okay, going on.
Is that the only things you want changed?
The notification of neighbors,
Notification,
and then a preamble that I had mentioned.
Preamble.
Yeah.
because let's just do this once.
Well, then, probably a fee to cover the notification.
And you're gonna have to define neighbors.
500-foot radius.
Well, there was a wedding, I believe a wedding reception. Within the town at a restaurant. That, it sounded like the Third World War going on. And it went on, it went on for an hour. And a number of people on the road I live on got ahold of me and said, what in the hell is, excuse my French, going on? And I don't know whether that particular group had a permit or not, but it was loud.
Well, what